When you think about the American Revolution, what names come to mind? George Washington, Benjamin Franklin, Paul Revere. But what if I told you that thousands of black men and women helped make American independence possible? That the first person to die for this country was a black man of African and Native American descent? That black soldiers fought in integrated units during the Revolutionary War that would not be seen again until 1948. They fought for a nation that had not yet decided whether they belonged in it. Today, we are unlocking the story of black patriots, the forgotten founders of American independence. As you've become accustomed to, often I'm asked questions relevant to the videos I'm making. This question asks this question. Growing up, what were you taught about the American Revolution? Were black soldiers ever mentioned in your history classes? And as a veteran yourself, what does it mean to you to discover that black Americans have been serving and sacrificing for this country since before it was even a country? First question first. Growing up, my understanding of the American Revolution was shaped by the educational environment of the Jim Crow era and the schools that I attended. I was raised in the inner city and attended a Lutheran school from kindergarten through third grade before completing my education in Catholic schools through high school graduation. In those classrooms, I was taught the traditional narrative of the American Revolution, a story centered almost exclusively on the bravery, sacrifice, and heroism of white American colonists who fought to secure independence from British rule. What was absent from that education was just as important as what was included. I was never taught about the existence and significance of slavery during the Revolutionary period, nor was I introduced to the thousands of black men and black women whose labor, service, and sacrifice contributed to the birth of this nation. The roles of free and enslaved black Americans, black patriots, black soldiers, and black spies were omitted entirely from the story I learned. As I grew older and began studying history more deeply for myself, I became to understand that there was more to the American Revolution story than the version presented in my childhood classrooms. What I later learned about the institution of slavery and the contributions of black Americans during the time of the American Revolution proved just how far America went to minimize our contributions in the founding of this country. Now to address part two of the question. As a veteran, discovering that black Americans have been serving, sacrificing, and fighting for this nation since before it was even a nation was both a source of pride and a source of anger. I remember the frustration I felt as I learned from my grandparents, parents, family members, my community, and later at Tennessee State University, just how much of our story had been omitted from the history I was taught in school. Growing up during the Jim Crow era, I had been given a version of the American history that celebrated the patriotism and sacrifice of some, while remaining largely silent about the patriotism and the sacrifice of others. Learning that black men and black women had fought in the American Revolution, shed blood for the cause of liberty, and contributed to the founding of this country, while their stories were ignored or minimized, was deeply upsetting. As someone who would later serve 20 years in the United States Army, those discoveries took on an even greater meaning. Military service creates a bond that transcends generations. In realizing that black Americans have answered the call to serve in every American conflict, from the Revolutionary War forward, gave me a profound sense of connection to those that came before me, Not just a connection to the black men and women, but a connection to everyone that truly believed that all men are created equal. It reinforced for me that our claim to this nation has never depended on the permission, recognition, or acknowledgement from others. Our ancestors earned their place in the American story through courage, sacrifice, service, and perseverance, even when the country they served often denied them the freedom they helped to defend. I know far more about our history than I did as a young man, but with that knowledge comes responsibility. I am committed to ensuring these stories are told and preserved for future generations. Through Unlocking Black History right here on YouTube, I will continue sharing the very history that others attempt to erase. The stories of Black patriots, Black soldiers, Black pioneers, and Black citizens whose contributions helped build, defend, and sustain this nation from its very beginning. Their history is American history, and I intend to do my part to make sure it is never forgotten again. So I'll close with this. If you don't see us celebrating the 4th of July and you don't see flags flying in front of our houses, don't question our patriotism. Look at yourselves in the mirror and ask yourself the question, how much of our patriotism did America choose to ignore? By 1775, 1 out of every 5 people living in the American colonies was enslaved. Let that land for a second. Colonial leaders were declaring that British tyranny threatened their freedom, writing that all men were created equal, demanding life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and simultaneously owning human beings. That contradiction was not lost on Black Americans, and many recognize that this conflict between Britain and the colonies presented an opportunity. Some believed that supporting the Patriot cause would lead to emancipation. Others believed that demonstrating loyalty and military service would force this new nation to acknowledge their humanity. For enslaved people, the revolution was not a political disagreement. It was a possible path to freedom. The first person killed in the struggle that became the American Revolution was a Black man. His name was Crispus Attucks, a man of African and Native American ancestry. On March 5th, 1770, tensions between British soldiers and colonists exploded in what we now call the Boston Massacre. Crispus Attucks stood in that crowd. When British soldiers opened fire, he was the first to fall. 5 colonists died that night. Attucks was the first. Patriot leaders used his death to rally support against British rule. They called him a martyr for liberty and then spent the next 2 centuries leaving him out of the history books. The first man to die for American independence was a Black man. Your children need to know that. After the start of the war, many colonial leaders opposed allowing Black men to serve. George Washington himself initially supported the ban. That changed fast. In November 1775, Virginia's royal governor, Lord Dunmore, issued a proclamation promising freedom to enslaved men who escaped their patriot owners to join the British. Thousands saw this as exactly what it was, an opportunity. Patriot leaders suddenly had a problem, and military necessity forced them to do what morality had not. Washington reversed course. Free Black men were permitted to enlist. In some cases, enslaved men were allowed to serve in exchange for a promise of emancipation. Between 5,000 and 8,000 Black men served on the Patriot side during the American Revolution. They fought in integrated units at the Battle of Bunker Hill, Battle of Saratoga, Battle of Monmouth, and the Siege of Yorktown. This level of integration would not be seen again in the United States military until President Harry Truman desegregated the armed forces in 1948. Now, let that sink in. If you want to understand the full story of Black Americans in the Revolutionary War, the definitive book is The Negro in the American Revolution by Benjamin Qualls. This is the foundational text. It documents the sacrifices, the service, and the broken promise that followed. It tells the complete story that your history class never told you. You can find this book in our Black History Library at the link in the description. Own this history, because if we do not preserve it, they will continue to try to erase it. Let me give you some names. Peter Salem, formerly enslaved man from Massachusetts, who gained his freedom and joined the colonial forces. At the Battle of Bunker Hill, Salem distinguished himself with extraordinary courage. Several historical accounts credit him with firing the shot that killed British Major John Pitcairn, one of Britain's most respected officers. He continued serving throughout the entire war. Salem Poor, he purchased his own freedom before enlisting. His performance at Bunker Hill was so remarkable that 14 officers submitted a formal petition praising his courage and skill. They wrote he had behaved like, and I want you to hear this, an experienced officer as well as an excellent soldier. 14 officers went out of their way to put that on paper. Salem Poor's name is in almost no American history textbook. James Armistead Lafayette. This man did not fight with a musket. He fought with information. An enslaved Virginian, Armistead volunteered to spy for the Patriot cause. He infiltrated British camps posing as a runaway slave. British commanders trusted him. They gave him access to military plans, troop movements, supply operations. And he passed all of it to American commanders. His intelligence was critical to the Yorktown campaign in 1781, the victory that effectively ended the war. After emancipation, Armistead took the surname Lafayette in honor of the French general who had championed his freedom. Wars are won not only on the battlefield, they are won by people willing to risk everything in the shadows. James Armistead Lafayette was one of those people. In 1778, Rhode Island was facing a severe manpower shortage, so they did something remarkable. They authorized the enlistment of enslaved black men with the promise of immediate emancipation upon joining. Approximately 140 black soldiers joined what became known as the 1st Rhode Island Regiment. Some called it the Black Regiment. At the Battle of Rhode Island in August 1778, this regiment successfully repelled repeated British attacks. They held the line. Military leaders praised them. Their performance was undeniable. And their success did something important beyond the battlefield. It directly undermined every racist argument being used to justify slavery. You cannot watch men fight with that kind of discipline and courage and then turn around and call them inferior. They proved it with their lives. If this history is moving you in a way that I hope it is, subscribe right now. This is what we do every week. We find the stories they bury and we bring them back. Subscribe and share this with your family. America won. Yorktown, 1781. The Treaty of Paris in 1783. Independence secured. And then came the betrayal. Some black soldiers who had been promised emancipation in exchange for their services were re-enslaved. Others could not receive military pensions or compensation. Slavery not only survived the revolution, it expanded dramatically in the decades that followed. The Constitution embedded slavery into the law of the land through the 3/5 Compromise and protections for the continuation of the internal slave trade until 1808. Black patriots had fought for a nation that then turned around and decided they did not belong in it. But here is what they also did. They planted seeds. Their participation created a powerful argument that would echo through generations. Black Americans had earned citizenship through sacrifice, through blood, through service. That argument was not forgotten. It was picked up by abolitionists, by Civil War soldiers, by civil rights activists, by veterans of every conflict that followed. I have 3 questions for the comments. I want you to answer at least one. 1. Crispus Attucks was the first person to die for American independence. Why do you think his name is not taught the same way as Paul Revere or George Washington? 2. James Armistead Lafayette risked his life spying for a country that still enslaved him. What does that tell you about the character and courage of Black Americans throughout history? 3. Black patriots fought for freedom and were denied it after the war. Does that pattern sound familiar to anything you see happening in 2026? Drop your comments below. Every comment is read. Black patriots helped build this nation from the very first battle. They were at Bunker Hill. They were at Saratoga. They were at Yorktown. They gathered intelligence that changed the outcome of the war. They bled for ideas that were not yet applied to them. Their story is not Black history separate from American history. Their story is American history. Share this video with your family. Show it to your children. Ask their schools why this version of the founding was never taught. Subscribe if you have not already done so. Like this video and visit our Black History Library at the link in the description. These books preserve the truth that the textbooks leave out. We are unlocking Black history, and we will keep unlocking it until every name is remembered. I'll see you at the next video.